Good day, welcome to Class Universal Schools Online Class SS1. Today we'll be doing biology and under biology and treating functioning ecosystem. Before I go further, let's just understand what an ecosystem is. An ecosystem consists of the abiotic and biotic components. So from our previous knowledge of ecology, we were taught that ecology is the study of living things and interactions with their environment. So now, you were given an ecological setting where we were told we go from the niche to the habitat, from the habitat to the population, from the population to the community, from the community to the ecosystem, from the ecosystem to the biosphere. So the ecosystem now is consisting of two communities, the non-living and the living. The non-living, which is the abiotic, the living, which is the biotic. So if we are now to consider a functioning ecosystem, the biotic component is the one being functional because it consists of living things. So the living things are the functional units of an ecosystem. So we are to consider these organisms. So these organisms cannot be divided into the autotrophs and the heterotrophs. The autotrophs are also called the producers, and the heterotrophs are also called the consumers. So the autotrophs, they produce their own organic food from simple inorganic substances using sunlight or chemical energy. So for those who use sunlight, they are said to be photosynthetic. Photosynthesis now meaning light, photo meaning light, while synthesis meaning production. So light production of food are those that use sunlight. Light production, photosynthesis. So you can get the meaning of photosynthesis. So for an example we all know are green plants. While for those who use chemical energy, they are said to be chemosynthetic. Chemo coming from the word chemical, and synthesis coming from the word production. So chemical production of food. So that's how we got about chemosynthesis. So for an organism that is said to be chemosynthetic, an example I can say is sulfur bacteria. So for the heterotrophs or consumers, from the word consumers as is done in economics, consumers means they are the ones that buy from the producer. So now in biology, these consumers, they feed on already manufactured food by other organisms, maybe the producer or organisms like themselves. So there are now examples. Herbivores, they feed on plants or plant-like. For an example I can use for the herbivore is a cow. For the carnivore, they are meat eaters. That means they eat other carnivores like them and they feed on the herbivores. Why the omnivores now join the two characteristics of the carnivore and the herbivore. That means they both eat plants and animals. So together they form the omnivores. So the omnivores example that I can use are human beings ourselves. So now let's go to the food chain, the food web, and trophic level. Food chain is a linear series showing who eats who in an ecosystem and through which energy in food is transferred. As you can see from the diagram, the producer absorbs sunlight, uses it to produce its own organic food. Then the primary consumer comes feeding on it, and the primary consumer is being fed on by the secondary consumer, and the tertiary feeds on the secondary. So, and when they all die, they become decomposed by the decomposers into simple inorganic substances, and the producer absorbs them back, and it starts another process of photosynthesis because it's absorbing sunlight from the diagram, and another food chain begins. So as you can see, energy is being transferred. The energy being used in producing the food, and the primary consumer feeds on the food, uses it to provide energy for itself. Then the secondary consumer also feeds on the primary consumer, and energy is being transferred like that to the tertiary or the final consumer. So let's go to the food web. The food web is defined as the feeding relationship that consists of different food chains. That means it has more than two food chains So as you can see from the diagram, we have more than two food chains in this food web diagram we're having. So when they are not interconnected, they make up a food web. So you can see that there are a lot of organisms involved in this food web than in the food chain. So before we go any further, let's look at the differences between the two. The food chain is a linear feeding relationship, as I've said. The food web is a complex feeding relationship. As you can see, they are all interconnected. More than a organism feeds on one organism. So it involves one food chain. You can see that it is just only one food chain. Why the food web involves two or more, as you can see from the diagram, we have close to 5 food chains. So the food chain, it involves few organisms. As you can see in the diagram, we have close to 5 organisms being involved in the food chain. While in the food web, we have close to 8 or 10 being involved in the food web. While for the food chain, organisms have less chance of survival due to the fact that there is no alternative to get food. While in the food web, organisms have greater chance of survival because there are alternatives to get food. So you can see that the food web has better options than the food chain. So I think we can understand what a food web is and what a food chain is. So to the next slide, we'll be talking about the trophic level. The trophic level, also known as feeding level, is defined as each stage in a food chain or food web. For an example now, taking the class as a food chain. You know that after exams, we position the teachers position the students according to their performance. We have the first, the second, the third, the fourth, till the last person in the class. So now the level you are occupying in the class as I've regarded as a food chain is your trophic level. So if you are the first, you are the one with the first trophic level. You are the second, you are the one occupying the second, you are the third, you are occupying the last one that is occupying. So in a food chain now, in a real life food chain, the producer is the one occupying the first trophic level. As you can see from there, is the one below and is the one occupying the first trophic level. The primary is the one occupying the secondary is occupying the third, the tertiary is occupying the fourth, and the quaternary, which is the final consumer, is occupying the last. So in any food chain, the final consumer is the last trophic level. Please note that in any food chain or food web, the final consumer is the one with the last trophic level. So this trophic level is now applicable in the pyramids, and we have pyramids of numbers and pyramids of energy. So let's move on to the pyramids of numbers. Pyramid of numbers refers to the number of individual organisms at each trophic level in a food chain. That means the number of organisms at each trophic level. That means at the first trophic level, we have the number of organisms there. Second, we have the number of organisms there. Third, we have the number of organisms there. Till the last one, we have the number of organisms there. So as you can see in the diagram below, the one occupying the first is the one with the highest number of organisms. So as you can see, if you come back to the class example I used, the first is the one with the highest cumulative. The second is lower than the first but close to the first. The third. So as you can see from the diagram, you see that the one occupying the first is the one with the largest number, while the last or final consumer, last trophic level, which is occupied by the final consumer, is the one with the lowest. So if you should see my description above, which decreases progressively from the first to the last. So you can see that the one occupying the first trophic level is the one with the largest, while the one occupying the last trophic level is the one with the lowest. So as you can see that even in human nature, the producers are always more than the final consumers. So as you can see, for an example now, we have Milo, we have Bonfita, we have more than 10 cocoa producing brands. So we the consumers were lower than what they produce out. They produce more in case of excess, in case if there should be scarcity, so that there will be excess for us to get it. But in a case where the final consumer is more than the producer, there will be scarcity. So that's why the producer will be the one with the largest number. So you can see that in every food chain or food web. So the pyramid of energy is now showing us the amount of energy present in living organisms at different trophic levels. So this one, the law applicable to the pyramid of numbers and the pyramid of energy is still the same, where the final consumer is the one with the lowest, while the one with the first trophic level, the producer, is the one with the highest. So as you can see from the diagram, the producer is the one with the highest amount of energy. Then the primary consumer is the next one. It has high amount of energy, but it's lower than the producer due to its losses. When we deal with energy transformation in nature, you understand this diagram very well, and you see why there's a reduction in energy transfer. So the secondary is the next, but lower than the primary. Then the tertiary is the one with the lowest, is lower than the secondary. So you can see that it causes loss in energy. So now when we deal with energy transformation in nature, you get a better picture and understand. I hope we enjoyed this class, and I hope we understood what a functioning ecosystem is. Now do these following questions and send your answers to the email provided for you to submit. Till we meet in the next class, thank you for listening.